It's John here. I want to talk today about secrecy. Very often, I have people coming to me and talking about their spouse, whether it be the wife or their husband who is the drinker. And one of the things that they often say to me is that I haven't told the children, I haven't told his family, I haven't told her friends, I haven't told anybody. And I always say, why? They say, oh, well, we want to keep it a secret, it's because it's their problem and I'm not going to tell anybody. And I always think of a couple of things. One is that probably everybody knows. And if you actually did tell people, they would probably be relieved. I remember when I gave up drinking, and I had been off the drink for about 3 months, and I was in the work one day, and I was sitting with some friends, and I said, by the way, I've given up drinking. And they just all started to laugh. I thought, this is a strange reaction. They said, we know. And I said, how do you know? I didn't tell you. Who told you? They said, well, we didn't have to ask. Nobody had to tell us. We knew when you were drinking. It was obvious. And now we know that you're not drinking because that's obvious. And it's surprising how much people actually know. But because you don't want to open up about it, they don't want to embarrass you by talking about it. So sometimes it's a real relief. That's one aspect of it. Second aspect of it is that you are living with an issue, a very difficult issue, and it kind of reduces the amount of support that you can have. You could be talking to your drinker's family. You could maybe get help from your drinker's family. You get drink support from your friends. Because sometimes we need to talk about what's going on in our lives. Otherwise, it just builds up and builds up and builds up in the head, and you can end up exploding. It becomes a bigger problem when it's in there. Now, the second thing is that addiction thrives in secrecy. When we think about change, if nobody knows about the problem, if nobody knows about the issue, then very often we just don't change. We don't change because we don't see a need to change. We don't see that it's a problem. We don't see it's a problem because nobody knows about it. The only person who knows is me. And if I'm the only person who knows about it, then what's the issue? I did research years ago in Glasgow University, and we started to look at how people change. That was what my thesis was all about, how people change. And we put together this measure, and we broke it down into two parts. And one part was about, sort of the secret sort of things that were public, things that weren't public, things that were just inside the person's head. And if we looked at the measures of the things that were inside the person's head, that didn't correlate with change. It didn't make people change. The things that were public is what made people change. It's the shame sometimes that helps people change. It's the fact that they feel guilty and other people can see it. It's how they want to project themselves as a good person. And if people look at this and say, oh, that's not so good, then it kind of provides motivation to change. This is why things like interventions, you often see interventions where a lot of people get around the drinker and start and tell them, you need to change, and you need to change for these reasons. It's a difficult thing to do as an intervention because you have to gather people together, and it's difficult to do properly. But when it is done properly, it's very powerful. It's very powerful because there's a whole heap of people who are all saying you need to change, and they need to be people who are important to the drinker, that their their goodwill is important, that they think highly of the drinker, that they don't want to be seen as less in their eyes. So, for your own sake, you need help, you need support. So, you can tell other people you're not being disloyal because they probably already know. Almost certainly they know what's going on. And if you tell them, it may be a real relief. They thought, oh, thank goodness for that. Now we can talk about it. Now we can offer our help. Now we can offer our support. And especially if you're starting to see the invitations for social occasions are drying up, that nobody wants to invite you around, or nobody wants to come around to your place anymore because of the drinking, then they obviously know. People who are close to you and close to your drinker will know. So you're not giving anything away that's not already known. But also, as I say, it allows you to get some support. And the last thing is, that when people know, then it helps that person change. I'm not suggesting this as a strategy, but one of my neighbours, when I was living in Glasgow, her husband, he was a gambler. Now, they'd saved up a lot of money to take the kids to Florida, to Disneyland, and the kids were really excited about going to it. And he gambled a lot. And she was incandescent. Now, up to this point, we knew nothing about his gambling. But after that, everybody knew about his gambling, because she was absolutely incandescent about this, and not so much for her sake, but for the kids, because the kids were so disappointed now they couldn't go. And she went out and she told everybody. And what I have to say is that he gave up gambling altogether after that. Now, I'm not saying that's a suggested strategy, but what I'm saying is that there is a power in that. There is a power in that. And that while nobody knew about it, he continued to gamble. When everybody knew about it, he stopped gambling. So you don't have to continue in secrecy. You don't have to hide up, what's going on. And actually, it's beneficial to you if you don't. Okay.